Woke mob, aka Hollywood, the media, their Trump derangement syndrome is ramping up to an all-time high. Casting God's only son as a Black queer woman. Jesus. No, really, Jesus. Cynthia Erivo is playing Jesus at the Hollywood Bowl, August 1st through 3rd. Big run. Not as big of a run as Sesame Street.
$20 million for Sesame Street in Iraq. They put on a little play on the street. $20 million. You could do it on Broadway and have $19 million left over.
Oh, and of course they had to cast Tom Hanks as the racist Trump supporter because that's how they believe the majority of Americans are. Here it is. Cynthia Erivo to play Jesus in Jesus Christ Superstar at the Hollywood Bowl. You're welcome. Buckle up because in their never-ending quest to defy logic, merit, and common sense, haven't they already made that movie? I think they have. Apparently, the thinking here is rebranding Jesus is going to be the ultimate DEI hire because they're upset that companies such as Target, Amazon, Google are revisiting their DEI tactics because, of course, they were just going for the token people and not really the best people for the job. Now, does that mean that people of diversity can't be the best for the job? No, quite the opposite. And that's why it was hurting the marginally oppressed or whatever it is. And now look, I understand because I'm an artist, so I get it. But what makes me so sad, I was just at a play reading last night, and so many of the people they really believe that women's rights are going to be taken away now with this administration and with the DEI demolishing. Won't have a chance unless under this DEI umbrella. Believe me, I get it. It's been hard my whole life. It's hard. It's hard out here. But I don't know that it has to do with DEI hire. It's just the world is tricky. Yeah, do that. You're not moving fast enough. You're not good enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not funny enough. My boss is a biatch. It's not easy being self-employed. I'm a self-hire. And nobody is going to be a harder boss than yourself. That's the thing a lot of people don't understand either when they want to put their power in somebody else's hands.
Sometimes I wonder if you can get juice from a potato. Is it possible for a teenage girl to drink water upside down? I'm thirsty. It's not possible. This has been me in a video. Come on, give up the juice.
That's exactly why I don't let my 8-year-old daughter watch pretty much anything, especially Nickelodeon. This is why a lot of Americans, majority of Americans, in fact, voted for Trump and don't believe Hollywood and don't like being sold stuff from Hollywood because we see the abuse. And so now that DOGE and Trump and the entire team there is looking under the hood of the government and realizing there is excess spending. There are things that are going on that are pretty ugly that people like the woke Hollywood crowd want to convince you is a good thing or it's helping the marginalized. It's not. It's actually hurting a lot of Americans, all different diverse backgrounds, right?
$186 million to a consortium of elections and political process strengthening ideas, of which $22 million goes to inclusive and participatory political process in Moldova. Goes to strengthen the political landscape and help them out so that they can vote for a radical left communist in Bangladesh. You had to see who they supported. You wouldn't believe, yeah, you would believe it. Nobody in this room would be in that group. $20 million for fiscal federalism and $19 million for biodiversity in Nepal. $47 million for improving learning outcomes in Asia. $18 million for helping India with its elections. Why the hell? Why don't we just go to all paper ballots? Let them help us with their elections, right? Voter ID, wouldn't that be nice? We're giving money to India for elections. They don't need money. They take advantage of us pretty good. One of the highest tariff nations in the world. We try and sell something, they have a 200% tariff, and then we're giving them a lot of money to help them with their election. $32 million for the Prague Civil Society Center. $14 million for social cohesion in Liberia, $9.7 million to develop a cohort Cambodian youth with enterprise-driven skills. Think of that. Millions of dollars for sex change operations in Guatemala, $20 million for Sesame Street in Iraq. They put on a little play on the street. $20 million. You could do it on Broadway and have $19 million left over.
So imagine that. But they don't get it.
Light of the day. You
truly
are such a gift.
You brought such light into the room. Thank you very much.
We
for
appreciate
coming
you.
into this room today.
From Pink News, we're an LGBTQ+ media publisher, so I don't need to tell you why this film is so important to us. I also don't think it could come at a better time for our community right now. You've both brought so much light and joy, a time that feels really dark.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
She thinks it's dark, of course, because Trump won the election and he's taking away DEI and he's making common sense common again. I mean, this is why Joy Reid was just fired, because she's a race baiter. I mean, let's call it what it is. You can't keep talking hate and say that you're love. But unfortunately, a lot of good people buy into this stuff. They believe this stuff because the left has been spoon feeding them with these stereotypes that Trump supporters hate Black people, that Trump supporters won't even shake a Black person's hand, that Trump supporters hate trans, and all of these things that are absolutely not true. If that was really true, a lot of Trump supporters would be upset as well. Because, by the way, there's a lot of people of diverse backgrounds, that voted for Trump. Trump supporters don't just look like this stereotype that Tom Hanks portrays. But this is how the left answers America becoming great again, right? They answer it with, well, then you're a racist bigot. So watch this sketch. If you haven't seen it, this is terrible. But you can watch it again if you have seen it, because this is some of the worst acting I've ever seen. Tom Hanks was a beloved actor, but I guess he's totally sold out to the woke mob. Watch him in this horrible stereotype that's not even funny.
Folks went to church, we wouldn't be in this mess we're in now.
You know what? I agree with you, Doug. I'd like to shake your hand, sir. Here we go.
No,
Oh, no. It's just a handshake. You're welcome in Black Jeopardy anytime.
Thank you, my brother. Maybe I'll start a show for you to come on, and we'll call it White Jeopardy.
No. We don't need it. We don't need it.
Not funny at all. But this is the reason, is because they say that they're championing, I don't know why I ever tried to say that word, all different people, but really they're not, because here they're showing a stereotype. They're showing you what they actually believe Trump supporters are like, which you and I know that's not it at all. There's a lot of artists, there's a lot of people. It's just a lot of times we're quiet and polite because these people have been fed such lies. This is absolutely dangerous. And this is why I believe Joy Reid got canceled. Let me know what you think. But I think this is way too far to say that millions of Americans, the majority of Americans, are fascist. I mean, that is not okay. And it couldn't be farther from the truth. To use Sunny Hostin's words, that's tone deaf. To just come back to common sense, to come back to merit base is a good thing. To look at this overspending is a good thing. But this is what people are tired of. This is exactly what people are tired of right here.
We've laid out the stakes in this crucial election, where one side stands for freedom while the other meets the textbook definition of fascism, namely a far-right dictatorial regime like Hitler's Germany or Franco's Spain or Mussolini's Italy.
Hateful, and she was a race baiter. There's no getting through to them. It's like Elon Musk said right here.
They call it like Trump derangement syndrome. And you don't realize how real this is until you can't reason with people. So I was at a friend's birthday party in LA, just a birthday dinner, and it was like a nice, quiet dinner, and everyone was behaving normally. And I happened to mention, this is before the election, like a month or two before, I happened to mention the president's name. And it was like they got shot with a dart in the jugular that contained like methamphetamine and rabies. Okay, and I'm like, what is wrong, guys? You just can't have a normal conversation. Yeah. And it's like they become completely irrational.
There's no reasoning with them at a certain point. They just can't hear you, so they're seeing through this filter of hate and then calling you hateful. But some people are waking up to it and going, we went too far. And then, of course, people like Sunny Hostin will completely ridicule them because you're not allowed to do that. You're only allowed to blame Donald Trump and fill yourself with hate and fill yourself with ideas that you're marginalized and that you can't be capable of greatness without somebody giving you a leg up. The woke elites are panicking. And when they panic, they don't look at where they went wrong or self-reflect or figure out, hey, why did majority of Americans vote for Trump? Do I really believe that majority of Americans are racist? No, they double down on that rhetoric. And then they put out sketches like this. And then they answer it with a Black Jesus queer woman, because if you say anything about it, then you're a biggest racist and not artistic. It reminds me of the time that I thought I could play Oprah Winfrey's part in The Color Purple. I actually thought that, but I was like 9 years old. It's like Hollywood thinks that they can play all the parts, and that's actually not DEI. That's the opposite of DEI. So we should just go back to merit, and that's what Donald Trump is doing. But of course, the ladies on The View don't get it. They're even arguing amongst themselves and really arguing for blind hiring, which is anti-DEI. Some Democrats are waking up to it. They actually get contempt for any Democrat that is actually waking up to this. I think DEI actually stands for Democrats equally indoctrinated. And if you fall out of that indoctrination and wake up at all to actual facts and looking at yourself, then they hate it. Look at Sunny Hostin's contempt and disgust on her face when she sees a Democrat waking up out of the indoctrination just a little bit.
As Trump continues to pull initiatives that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, everybody knows it as that, former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg weighed in with a take that surprised some people. Watch.
What do we mean when we talk about diversity? Is it caring for people's different experiences and making sure no one's mistreated because of them, which I will always fight for? Or is it making people sit through a training that looks like something out of Portlandia, which I have also experienced, and it is how Trump Republicans are made. If that comes to your workplace with the best of intentions, but doesn't actually get at what actually matters here, what's actually at stake.
Do you agree with him that DEI initiatives drove voters to Trump? And what else can be done to make sure everyone is represented on an even playing field?
You know what I think, and
What do you think, Sonny?
I like Pete, of course, but I think he got that so wrong, and I think it was so tone deaf.
There's that tone deaf. I've told you about that. Tone deaf.
What's going on, all of it.
Oh, and she gets so upset, so contemptuous.
I thought all of it was tone deaf, because what happens is when from 1776 to 1965, you have basically white men in charge of everything, right? Women, people of color, we're left out of just equality of opportunities.
Okay, notice how Sunny never mentions Karoline Leavitt. She's never going to celebrate people like that. That's why I don't go down to these women's marches, because they're not for women. She's never going to celebrate somebody like Dr. Ben Carson. She's not going to celebrate those people because they don't go along with her ideology. It really has nothing to do with equality. And by the way, we can't have equality of outcome. We can't. That's impossible. That's a dictatorship that they say they don't like, but it seems like they want, because equality of outcome means that we all have to be robots. You can't have equality of outcome. Equality of opportunity, sure, for the best person for the job.
When from 1776 to 1965, you have basically white men in charge of everything, right?
And what happened from 1965 until 2008? 2008, they really ramped up, like bringing racism back again, like the Obama and all of that. We were doing pretty good. We were getting along pretty fine. But the fact that she wants to shine a light on it, and if you're not racist, you're actually racist. This is what drove people to Trump, because they can't stand this kind of rhetoric anymore.
Women, people of color, we're left out of just equality of opportunity, that sort of thing. And I think when that equality starts popping up in terms of diversity program, equality now feels like oppression to those people who were at the top of the ladder, not necessarily because of their merit, but because of their identity, right?
Is that why you're feeling oppressed right now, Sunny? Because you got this job because of your identity and your identity politics. And so now other people are getting an opportunity. They're so two-faced. It's absolutely sickening. But watch how they all get, they actually don't even know what they're talking about as they fight over. Let's just, basically, they're fighting for merit-based hiring, and Alyssa calls them out on it, but Sunny still doesn't get it. Talk about tone deaf.
Right. And in my view, when you look at the stats, it is really clear from McKinsey, actually, a consulting firm that Pete used to work for. That firm found that companies with more diversity financially and socially outperform those that are less diverse. The business case for diversity, equity, and inclusion, it makes sense. And I think we can all agree that we want our workforce to reflect what our world looks like.
Yes, but you don't do that. And here's the thing. The fact that Business Insider said that businesses were doing better if they hired that way. See, that just tells them, oh, I better fit a quota. I better have the token Black person because we're going to do better financially because people like Sunny Hostin will support us. And later, even Sunny and Anna say, well, if Target doesn't do DEI hires anymore, we just won't go to Target anymore. Hello, they are so hypocritical. They don't even get the monster that they're creating. Jesus is playing at the Hollywood Bowl. They should go see it. I'm sure they'd love it.
I think he does too.
No, I think he does. But my question, really, I think we need to reframe the discussion. If the problem is these programs, what is the solution? What should we just then depend on the benevolence of Elon Musk and white billionaires to hire women and people of color?
No.
Yes, we should, off of merit. Hello, and that's what they're doing. But you're so tone deaf to notice it. Where is she noticing Karoline Leavitt? Where is she noticing Kash Patel? No, nowhere. I'm not noticing that they're noticing that. Weird. Tulsi Gabbard. Weird.
Should we just depend on corporations to, on their own, make the workforce more diverse? They didn't do it from 1776 to 1965. Why do we think it's going to be any different?
I think you hit on something important.
I think it's going to be different because from 1965 until like 2008, it was different. It wasn't until you guys started really hammering home this woke ideology that it became a hot mess. Look at her.
I firmly believe most Americans, and I think everyone at this table, thinks that workforces, organizations are stronger when there's diversity and representation. What he's getting at, I think, is how do you actually achieve that? And I think that in this era, there's been almost this DEI industrial complex. And it's funny you mentioned McKinsey because a lot of consultants get hired by big corporations to make people feel really good that they're achieving diversity because they put on a seminar, because you watch something, because you said Latinx instead of Latina.
And reacting because of the times we live in, it's so politically charged. So many people are so frustrated that people are pushing back on DEI that they're not taking a minute to pause that maybe DEI itself needed improvements in its actual application. We're seeing a lot of things. One was New York Times staged fake interviews with diverse candidates. Wells Fargo, the New York Times reported it. Yeah. Sorry, just to be clear. A woman or a person of color, after the position had been filled, to check off their boxes of minority inclusion. That's not helping anyone. So a lot of the problem is that
implies that the woman wasn't qualified for the job.
There was no job. But Lily Zhang, who wrote for Harvard Business Review, reputable place, she's a critic. She says she's a DEI strategist and consultant. And one of the things she said is, DEI was never focused on the results. It was just the commitment to the results. So companies would hide under this idea of we're so progressive with not a lot of benefits, or not always benefits, to the people they claim to be helping. So some of the ways you change it, Sunny, you've been asking all day, what are the things?
What's the solution?
So she has solutions. She's saying focus on measurable results like pay equity, physical and psychological safety, holding network events, blind hiring. There are a lot of things that you can
blind hiring, that makes sense.
Right. But the point is kind of merit-based? Isn't that the whole argument that DEI is against?
Well, she dug in because she studied, she's a consultant on DEI for companies for 10 plus years. And what she's saying is, regardless
blind
of the
hiring is the opposite of DEI.
No, that's not true.
Yes, that is true. Blind hiring is the opposite of DEI. Boom. That's it. That's all it is. But Lara Trump gets it. A lot of very smart, very intelligent, very capable and strong women are on Trump's team. But we never hear Sunny Hostin talking about Caroline Leavitt in a positive light, the youngest woman to ever be press secretary. Watch Lara Trump on her new show, My View, which is like my view, which is her view, but it's like my view, maybe your view. Watch.
And welcome to My View. I'm Lara Trump, and I'm excited to welcome you to our inaugural episode. I want to give you an idea of what you can expect right here every Saturday night. Abraham Lincoln famously observed that a house divided against itself cannot stand. And yet it's felt like every day there are more attempts to turn us, we the people, against one another.
You never see him around strong, intelligent women, ever. It's just that simple. They're intimidating to him. He doesn't like to be challenged by them.
This White House and administration is full of incredibly impressive women, like the newly confirmed Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, whose public service knows no bounds, brave enough to enlist in the Army National Guard, and bold enough to buck the entire Democrat Party.
I can no longer
Can we please just for a moment recognize this headline? It's comedy gold.
remain in today's Democratic Party that's under the complete control of an elitist cabal of warmongers who are driven by cowardly wokeness, who divide us by racializing every issue and stoking anti-white racism, actively work to undermine our God-given freedoms.
And Attorney General Pam Bondi, who's already made it clear that the rule of law matters again, and that anyone, anywhere who defies it will face the consequences.
This is a new DOJ, and we are taking steps to protect Americans, American citizens, and angel moms. It stops today. We sued Illinois, and New York didn't listen. So now you're next.
And White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt, the youngest woman to ever take the podium, who proudly took up her job duties just days after giving birth to her son.
What is the president's message to Americans out there, many of whom supported him and voted for him, who are concerned that this is going to impact them directly, even if, as you said, the funding isn't coming directly to their
I have now been asked and answered this question 4 times. To individuals at home who receive direct assistance from the federal government will not be impacted.
All the left has is fear. They're doubling down on the fear. Oh my gosh, they're taking away women's rights. I was at a play reading group last night and all the artists were aghast, like they're taking away our chances as a woman. I'm like, no, they are not. Yes, my chances have always been taken away. No, it's just ridiculous how they're constantly blaming this instead of thinking that they're capable. I was listening to a conference call with our Colorado Congresswoman, Diane DeGette, and she was just breeding fear. She's like, we're terrified for our lives. We're terrified for women's rights. And he says he's not going to, but he is. And then trans people would call, I'm so scared. And she's like, you should be. That's a terrible leader. Even if you are scared, which there's no reason to be, there really isn't. But even if you are, that's a terrible leadership position to be like, I'm terrified. What are we going to do? And that's another reason why they hate Donald Trump, because he doesn't show that kind of fear and intimidation. Even when he's nearly assassinated, he gets up and he says, fight, 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 because he has that character within him to keep fighting for what's good, to keep fighting for justice, to believe in yourself. I mean, this was a guy that, of course, the left used to love. I mean, this is why I can't get behind them, because they don't champion people like Karoline Leavitt. It's very duplicitous. They only champion women and people of diverse backgrounds if you are lockstep with their script. And they've totally lost the plot. And they're pushing this fear in DEI instead of looking at why these things aren't working. Have on the left is lies, and they can keep casting Cynthia Erivo or Erivo, whatever her name is. I'm sorry. They can keep casting her as Jesus as many times as they want, and people are still going to see the truth. Can't even have a conversation with them without them just calling you a racist or a bigot, or that you don't care about people and you're trying to take away Medicare. It has nothing to do with any of those things. Those are lies, and more lies. And that's the facts.
The spending bill that passed last night aims to cut $2 trillion.
Right.
Can you guarantee that Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security will not be touched?
Yeah, I mean, I have said it so many times, you shouldn't be asking me that question. Okay? This will not be read my lips. There won't be read my lips anymore. We're not going to touch it. Now, we are going to look for fraud. I'm sure you're okay with that, like people that shouldn't be on. people that are illegal aliens and others, criminals in many cases. And that's with Social Security. We have a lot of people. You see that immediately when you see people that are 200 years old that are being sent checks with Social Security. Some of them are actually being sent checks. So we're tracing that down, and I have a feeling that Pam is going to do a very good job with that. But you have a lot of fraud. But no, I'm not. We're not doing anything.
So once again, that's what they're looking at is the fraud. That doesn't mean you're racist.
Some of the flagrant scams that, as an example, they've spent money on, and we've been able to recapture for a large dose of it, at least $520 million for a consultant to, think of it, $520 million, $520 million. You know, when I hire consultants and they just take advantage of me, it's a horrible thing to watch. And I give them $25,000. I feel I'm overpaying. These guys got $520 million. Environmental, social, governance, and investments in Africa. $25 million to promote biodiversity, conservation, and socially responsible behavior in Colombia. This is Colombia, South America, not Columbia University. Of course, that might be worse, actually, based on their actions. $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. Nobody knows where. Who are they? Where do they come from? Just sedentary migrants. Nobody even knows what a sedentary migrant is. If they were sedentary, they wouldn't be a migrant, right? They wouldn't move. No, they wouldn't move. They'd stay in the same place. Right, Doug? $42 million for social and behavior change in Uganda. $10 million for Mozambique medical male circumcisions. Why are we going to Mozambique to do circumcisions? It's a lot of money. $14 million for improving public procurement in Serbia. Is a beauty. $486 million to a consortium of elections and political process strengthening ideas, of which $22 million goes to inclusive and participatory political process in Moldova. $29 million goes to strengthen the political landscape and help them out so that they can vote for a radical left communist in Bangladesh. You had to see who they supported. You wouldn't believe, yeah, you would believe it. Nobody in this room would be in that group. $20 million for fiscal federalism and $19 million for biodiversity in Nepal. $47 million for improving learning outcomes in Asia. $18 million for helping India with its elections. Why the hell? Why don't we just go to all paper ballots? Let them help us with their elections, right? Voter ID, wouldn't that be nice? We're giving money to India for elections. They don't need money. They take advantage of us pretty good. One of the highest tariff nations in the world. We try and sell something, they have a 200% tariff, and then we're giving them a lot of money to help them with their election. $32 million for the Prague Civil Society Center. $14 million for social cohesion in Liberia, $9.7 million to develop a cohort Cambodian youth with enterprise-driven skills. Think of that. Millions of dollars for sex change operations in Guatemala, $20 million for Sesame Street in Iraq. They put on a little play on the street. $20 million. You could do it on Broadway and have $19 million left over.
How many times are we going to have to say it's common sense politics? Let's look under the hood of the government and see what's really going on. And this overspending, especially to things that we don't want to do, like a Sesame Street in Iraq. Some people, again, pulling at the heartstrings. Oh, they just need Elmo. No, they actually don't. Our citizens here, some of them need homes. So the problem is for the Democrats is that they just keep doubling down on the racist rhetoric. Can't just keep saying the same messaging over and over, that millions of Americans are racist, that Elon Musk is an idiot, even though he's a super genius. I mean, these things aren't flying with the majority of Americans. Or do you think that, like Sunny Hostin, then people of color and diversity and women will never get hired again? Let me know what you think in the comments. And thank you so much for subscribing if you have. And if you haven't yet, please do, or else I'm just going to call you a misogynist.